Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this week's edition of the Classroom featuring this week Mr. Schwab. And she can join us if she can, Miss O'Malley. Hopefully she's doing well. But we're going to kick off with something that has been a long time coming. And everybody's been waiting for it. And I hope that people took a moment out of the craziness of the world today to just soak it in. Because we very rarely get things that we want. Not only did Jake Paul suffer his first loss, Anthony Joshua, I spelled Joshua wrong.
Joshua.
Yeah, hold on.
Put some respect on his name.
Let's say Anthony Joshua KO'd. Oh, no, wrong one. See, y'all got me all backwards here. I'm so happy. KO's Jake Paul in the 6th round. And at first I was like, all right. When I first heard it, I was like, maybe he just like he TKO'd him. Like he hit him so hard he knocked him down a couple of times. Nah, he knocked him. I wouldn't say like clean out, like they didn't have to use smelling salts, but Jake Paul was lost in the sauce for a couple of minutes after that final punch. And yeah. So your thoughts on Paul being KO'd?
Should have happened a long time ago, but he's been facing tin cans or retired boxers, regardless of their legendary status. Honestly, I'm glad that this is kind of over. I'm not sure what's next for Paul. Hopefully, it's no more boxing matches because let's be honest, if you grew up with boxing during its heyday of the heavyweight period, back with Tyson and Foreman, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe. I mean, we had a great time, not really a golden age of boxing, but at the tail end of the golden age. And then we grew up with, you had De La Hoya, Roy Jones Jr., even though I don't like him much, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo, Julio Cesar Chavez.
Yep.
And then we get to Paul. This to me has always been a stain on boxing for a person like Paul to be getting prize fighter money, the likes of which we haven't really seen past Floyd Mayweather. For him to get these kinds of purses by being this kind of spectacle, honestly, it's outrageous for boxing. It's not good for boxing, to watch him get all these tin cans and then, a couple of legendary guys obviously on the take. And then for him to step in against a real boxer. And honestly, for all the apologists for Paul that are saying, oh, you got to put some respect on his name. No, I don't. You give me 10 or 20 million. I don't need 90. You give me 10 or 20 million. I'm getting in the ring with Joshua and letting him knock me smooth the hell out. So, I mean, he gets no credit for what he's done. He was just a spectacle and they propped him up. And let's not mince words about it. Joshua carried him for 6 rounds. He allowed him to go 6 rounds and doled out punishment through most of those rounds. There were a lot of
it helped that Paul spent most of the fight running away from him.
Yeah. So, I mean, and a lot of the imagery of this fight against a good fighter at the end of his prime in Joshua, but still a good fighter, a competent fighter, was very unflattering for Paul. And there's really no way for him to be able to spin it to really keep his career going in this avenue. I think it's time for him to go back to the podcasts and the Twitch streams and YouTube and all that stuff. He made his money. He got lucky. He turned himself into a draw for the sport, even though I think it wasn't a good look for the sport. And this last purse, he's supposed to be getting like 45 million after taxes, 30 something million after taxes. Take your money and run.
Is from a business standpoint, Jake Paul is Oscar De La Hoya, is it? That basically was his own promoter. Like, you know what I'm saying? So he got the promoter's cut and the fighter's cut. I forget the name of the fighter. But basically,
that's De La Hoya had his own. De La Hoya was one of them. Mayweather too.
I'm like, that's where the large numbers come from from Jake Paul's purses is that his entertainment company is also producing these fights as well. But I will say this. I said this earlier on Cheap Hop, and I do agree with you on this. To me, the result of this fight shows me that I don't want to get sued for defamation, but something was up with the Tyson fight, because there were too many times in which Tyson hit him with the exact same combination to the body where he was dropped and his head was right there, and Tyson didn't cock back and wow and rock him one. And it just, I'm not, like I said, I love Mike. I don't know.
I know he did that for the paycheck, because there were at least 3 times where he was ready to throw that devastating punch, and twice you saw him cock it and get ready to throw it and then stop himself from throwing those punches that we're used to seeing from him in his heyday, and even after he came back after being in prison. So I know that fight was fixed. I 100%, no doubt. And I don't like to be on here like a conspiracy theorist. That's not really my jam. But I'll tell you right now, Tyson got paid to carry him and to help kind of elevate his stature, and was willing to eat a loss on his career record for the money. And I'll be honest, I love Mike Tyson, not necessarily the person, just the prize fighter. He's done some things, even though I don't agree. He was convicted of the thing that happened with that girl in his hotel room. But having said that, you know, he was willing to take a dive for 20, $30 million. And I'll be honest, I can't really argue with that, because if I'm getting in the ring with any of these dudes, I'm taking the dive for 5 million. Hell, give me $1 million after taxes. I'm taking that dive. Light me up.
I ain't trying to look like Martin after he fought Roy Jones Jr. in that episode.
Yeah, you see the picture of him in the hospital thing with his jaw all like that, and the X-ray showing the 2 fractures. I'm like, bro.
But you proud
I'll tell you what,
bro.
For $37 million, I'm gonna pull it on Mally and Cuss. You could fuck me up.
Oh yeah. Well, and here's the thing about it. I did see an opposite perspective with all of this, right? Where it was from the perspective of a dude that is actually a combat fighter and boxer and so on and so forth. So there's some weight to what he said. But he was kind of embarrassed for the sport by what happened last night. As much as everybody was praising, Paul finally getting knocked out, etc. He's like, Jake Paul had no business being in that ring with Anthony Joshua. None at all.
Any of these fights.
Yeah, and I'm one to agree that, like, you're right. Jake Paul had no business, because the bottom line is where Jake Paul is at is he should be fighting amateurs. He should be fighting other amateurs, and he probably would get rocked like that by other amateurs. Like, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's the thing with it is I've said this tons of times. Jake Paul is legitimately working his way up the WCB ranks, fighting actual active in their prime, his age fighters.
Yep.
Jake Paul would probably have at least a good 7 to 8 losses on his record. I think
he wouldn't have a win.
Here's the thing about it. The sun can shine on a dog's ass once a day. So I believe that there could be one fight where maybe a fighter doesn't take him seriously enough, he gets a lucky punch, and that results in Jake Paul getting a win.
Nope.
But I definitely see far more losing than winning anything. And if he actually took the route of fighting, because when you look at how he got beat by Joshua didn't do anything special.
He took his time. He carried him for 6 rounds. That would have been in his prime, in his time. That would have been a first-round knockout against that competition of fighter.
Because it showed it's not necessarily about Anthony Joshua outclassed Logan Paul. It's more about, or not Logan Paul, but Jake Paul. It's more along the lines of amateur, professional, and it's what you expect to see when you see an amateur climb in the ring with a professional.
And that's exactly why I say that he would not have a win against real fighters in the rankings working his way up. He'd be 0 and whatever for however many. And that's why he faced so many tin cans and retired boxers on the take versus actual real boxers and working his way up. And my opinion would be different had he done that. but there's no way he would because these people, even if they want the paycheck, they're not taking dives because their careers are still invested in trying to climb the rankings.
They're not gonna take that L.
Yeah.
No matter how big.
I mean, this isn't the 60s and 50s and 30s. They're not taking these dives when, maybe you get the guy that's, 10 and 10 to go ahead and roll over once. Maybe you get a couple of those guys to get a couple of milli and take the dive. It's not outside the realm of possibility. But the people that are really trying to fight and make it as a prize fighter, a lot of those people aren't taking the dive. They want their shot. And they're not going to give it up so Jake Paul can get more money? No.
Oh, also, I wanted to mention, since we were on the topic of boxing and other boxing news, that I want to say Terrence Crawford retired this week.
Yep. Did what he wanted to do, got another belt on his shoulder, had the whole hubbub about, having to pay the WBC or whoever it was like 400 grand or some crazy nonsense. Whatever that's all about, I got to delve deeper into that because that's a travesty if that's true, which it probably is because you figure he wouldn't go out retiring with that kind of lie hanging over his head. But he ended his career on a hell of a high note.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one shot that he gave Canelo, he gave that Canelo that one shot, turned his head. He was like, "Oh, did you just do that to me?"
and that was the thing with it is that Crawford showed he still had it and wants to go out. This is what these young folks don't understand. And it's just a small side tangent with these young folks don't understand about Jordan and his retirement. I saw another video today speculating about, was it really a suspension? It's like, if it wasn't a secret suspension, oh well. If it was, but I can believe, but either scenario is believable. It wasn't, or that it was. The fact that I say it wasn't is, look at what Jordan had accomplished at the point in which he retired. There was literally nothing more for him to do. He already had a Hall of Fame career like multiple times over by the time he retired that first time.
I might agree if his father hadn't been murdered. I think that was the precipice of him saying, I've had enough with the game. I'm going to go do something else.
And that's where I agree. It's like, I think when you add in that factor of the father passing away, I think that makes it more believable that he did it just because he was like, okay. And knowing the fact that his dad had always wanted him to play baseball. That was a known fact before, that whole tragedy happened.
Yep.
So, but anyway, all right, we're going to go into NFL talk now. NFL Week 16 action. There's a lot of good games. My team does crazy games. My team doesn't play until tomorrow night. They got a huge game against the Colts tomorrow night. And for right now, we are going to kick off the Week 16 NFL talk with oh, good Lord.
And while we wait, I just would like to mention that I started this fantasy season 0-5. 2 of those losses were my fault for sitting people on the bench. And since starting the season 0-5, I have jumped all the way up to the number 2 spot and am now on the precipice of going to my back-to-back title game to defend my title from last year. And if I win, I will be getting a 2025 championship ring to put next to my 2024 championship ring.
Oh my goodness. This nigga's worse than Shawn Michaels. Said he was going to retire after last year, and then came back.
I don't even need the belt. I'm going to tell him, don't even bother mailing it to me. I'm not coming out to pick it up. I got my championship ring.
Oh, nice. All right, so the first matchup that we will be speaking of is the Broncos and the Jaguars. 2 of the AFC's best teams go head-to-head. Jacksonville ends up winning the game, surprisingly. I'll say 34-20. Is this exposing Denver, or is this a matchup where Jacksonville's just hot right now? Kind of like New England during their 11-game run.
I think it's a confluence of 2 things. I think 2 things can be true. I believe the Jaguars are having a high season, and this is allowing them to be the team that we thought they should have been this whole time with Lawrence under center. And there's also the other flip side of the coin that Denver honestly isn't really ready. They're more like paper tigers. They're game planning very well. They're getting some wins, but don't expect really either of these teams. They're on the lower end of Super Bowl contenders. They have puncher chances of actually doing anything special in the playoffs.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think the Jags are hot at the right time. I think everybody's clicking. Everybody's playing well. They just signed Jacoby Myers to a 3-year deal after trading
Paid
for
that
him
boy
earlier this season.
60 million.
And he earned it. Like his
Oh
chemistry
yeah.
with Lawrence is off the charts.
Having just played with him this year, absolutely.
Oh yeah. So there's also, what was it? A game that happened on Thursday that's huge for my boys.
That was a crazy game.
Yeah, the Seattle Seahawks beat the Los Angeles Rams in Seattle. They clear themselves a path to the 1 seed. Matter of fact, I believe they are sitting in the 1 seed currently, and basically just have to win out to keep it.
Yeah, that was a great game.
They do come across San Francisco the last week of the season, so that's going to be interesting if both of them win over the next. I think the Seahawks have a bye though, like within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, with the confidence that the Seahawks got by not only tying that game in overtime on a touchdown throw, but also going for the 2-point conversion, which really kind of reminded me of the Lions and how they and the Eagles per se of how they have a penchant for going for the knockout punch instead of just playing what we used to know as regular football. You know, most teams would have kicked it. Let's leave it up to the defense. Let's let them not get a field goal, but they know that, you know, Stafford's playing at an MVP level. He's probably going to be able to march down and get them. They hadn't really stopped Puka Nacua all game. So they said, all right, well, we're gonna put it up right here, and it's win or lose right here. And they were able to do it. I mean, that was a great game to watch. And there's been a handful of late games that have been really, really down to the last play of the game, which is good for football.
Oh yeah, 100%. The more interesting the games are, the better it is for the NFL and their billion-dollar industry.
Yeah,
Is become professional football,
but they can't afford to pay for stadiums.
Yeah, you know, at this point, the NFC West sits as, I believe, the only division with 3 10-win teams.
It's their year this year.
This is their year to be the toughest division in football. By the way, with the Steelers win over the Lions,
that was a great game too, down to the last play of the game.
The 49ers clinch a playoff spot. So we will see the red and gold in the playoffs. It's just a matter of what the seeding is going to be. Because I haven't spoken about this yet, because we'll get to it when we talk about the Colts, but the 49ers hold their destiny in their hands and could potentially end up with the NFL's number 1 seed in the NFC and home field advantage throughout the playoffs before the end of this year, or before the end of this season. They just have to go through 3 samurai swords in order to get there. Let's see. All right. So we also talked, you mentioned the Eagles, and they become the first back-to-back champion in the NFC East in like almost a decade.
Yeah.
Like nobody has done that. It's been a different team every single year.
That's why they've been routinely one of the, if not the toughest division in football, is because every year it's somebody else. The Cowboys win it, the Eagles win it, Lions win it, Cowboys win it, Eagles win it, Lions win it. So it's just, it's been, it's not one of those things. It's not like when New England was having their run and it's like, okay, there's nobody in their division that's going to challenge them. It's literally New England, you know, for 10 or 12 years of freaking Tom Brady. Outside of like the 2 seasons Miami actually played pretty good, you know. So I mean, it's good to see Philadelphia finally putting it all together to have that consistency at that high level.
Yeah. Now this brings them to what, 9-6, I think it is.
I believe so.
They're behind San Francisco. I know that. No, that brings them to 10-5. San Francisco is 11-4, I believe. They're 10-4. Hopefully, it'll be 11-4.
You better knock on some wood.
All right, so next up is the matchup that's happening right now. It's actually tied 7-7. And well, actually, sorry, the Patriots are up 10-7. This matchup is interesting because the Ravens are kind of starting to round into form. The Patriots are starting to cool off a little bit from where they were a couple of weeks ago. Can the Ravens continue to win and put together a nice run that potentially, because it looks like the Steelers ain't losing, because they just beat they're the ones that just beat the Lions. So what do you think is going to go on here? Like, can the Ravens win out and win that division?
Ravens are fighting for their lives. Every game for them, they're taking as a Super Bowl. I mean, they have to. They can't afford another loss.
Yeah,
So they have to win these games. They're playing pretty good right now. They are down at the moment, but I do think they'll come back to win this game. But if the Patriots can hold them off, I do believe in Mike Vrabel. I like him as a head coach. I believe Tennessee severely dropped the ball on letting him go from Tennessee, but they had started to shed talent on that team, so it really it was going to be tough for him to win regardless, even though I believe he's a good coach.
yeah,
Um, New England, this is an opportunity for them to put their foot on the neck of another team, a playoff hopeful, and kind of, crush their hopes and give them confidence going into the playoffs, which I think they desperately need as a young team, being led by a young quarterback with a head coach in his first season with that team. So I believe that, this is one of those games they have to win in order to make sure they don't backpedal into the playoff picture and then lose in the first round. They got to go in with that confidence. But Ravens are a championship contending team with the talent that's on that roster. So I am curious to see who pulls this victory out, and it'll change the landscape, so to speak, just like the Steelers and Lions game. That was a crazy one as well.
sure. Uh, I looked at the standings. Basically, even if Baltimore wins this, they're still a game behind Pittsburgh,
Yep.
who's 9-6. So even if they win this, they'll be 8-7. So then there'll be a game behind them. But that AFC South is or AFC North has always been a tough division. Tough division. The AFC South right now is being owned by the Jaguars, who we talked about a little bit earlier, in their victory over the Broncos, and with Indianapolis as a close second. But
And
that's
I will
probably
say this, I think it needs to
yeah.
be mentioned. With this win, as crazy as it was for the Steelers, this is another year where Mike Tomlin will not have a losing season as the Steelers head coach. He has never had a losing under 500 season as the Steelers head coach. And it goes to show that even when you have bad seasons, 500, if you stick with the regime, you put confidence into the coach, he can kind of, I mean, how many years now since Roethlisberger has he been winning with not the same quarterback under center, bring in this guy, bring in this guy, bring in this guy, get the last ounce of juice out of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, and Aaron Rodgers, you got to give him credit. He was able to go toe to toe with the Lions, and the Lions have a pretty potent offense all around. Outside of missing Laporta, they're definitely missing a valuable weapon, but they still have Amon St. Ra, Gibbs, Singletary. So
Williams. No, Singletary's not with them anymore. It's
Montgomery. Excuse
Gibbs
me,
and
wrong running
Montgomery.
back.
Yeah, yeah.
And Jared Goff has played at moments like an MVP for them. I still think they need some pieces on defense, but they still are doing their thing. Hutchinson's looks like he's come back from his injury, but for the Steelers to beat that team, even with how they beat them, I mean, this might be the year. Maybe they can pull together 3 or 4 wins to get to the Super Bowl. They're on the bottom end of the Super Bowl contenders, but it's all about getting to the race. Once you get to the race, I'm a believer in Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they can do just enough. It's curious to see that he wasn't able to do it with the Jets, but I believe that Achilles injury really kind of doomed his Jets tenure.
Very much so. Very much so. All right. So that brings us to our final game we're going to talk about, and that's tomorrow night's game, which is a huge game for both the 49ers and for the Colts, because the Colts could be one step closer to being eliminated from the playoffs if they lose, dropping to 8-7, and the 49ers could lose the momentum that they need in order to gain the number one seed, because in order to do that, they must win out. They must win this week against the Colts, next week against the Bears, and then the final week against the Seahawks at home. So, how big of a game is this? Who's this a bigger game for?
Both. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The Niners are
Yeah.
playing with house money because for the amount of injuries they've had, if they hadn't had Mac Jones to kind of right the ship, they might be looking at a sub 500 season at the moment, but they're still right in the thick of the playoff hunt and they want to keep momentum as it were. So this is a huge game for them, but it's also huge for the Colts. They had the renaissance of Daniel Jones. They've pulled Philip Rivers out of retirement at the last minute, 5-year limit, and the storylines are crazy, but both of these teams absolutely need this game. They have to have it. So it should be, I don't see a blowout either way. I think it'll come down to whoever has the ball last. It'll probably be a low scoring game, somewhere around 17, 20 points, and somebody's going to kick a game winning field goal. Not sure if it's the Niners. I believe they have enough to beat the Colts without Daniel Jones and with Philip Rivers still kind of getting into form, but him having another week after what he showed against Seattle, who's also having a good season. I think, the Niners can't take this game lightly. I think Rivers has enough in the tank, especially with the Renaissance year that Taylor's having at running back. They've got the weapons and pieces to beat a depleted defense that the Niners have, even with that defense playing well without those great pieces.
Well, I will say this. One thing, the positive on the Niners side is I do believe the Niners are going to be bringing up Eric Kendricks, linebacker, 10-time like All-Pro linebacker, uh, to play on the defense. Like I believe this week, the practice squad. They signed him to the practice squad. But we'll see. Hopefully, he'll be coming back and helping us with that playoff, helping them with their playoff run as well. But yeah, I can see what you're saying. Like this is definitely what the old like Stuart Scott and them would call a trap game. A game that the Niners feel like, okay, we should be able to win this, but the ball bounces the wrong way. It's the bad thing happens here or there, a penalty here or there, and next thing you know, the Colts are walking out of San Francisco, or the Niners are walking out of San Francisco with an L instead of a W. But I have faith that what's going to happen is that there's two factors that always factor into winning games if you're doing it the right way. And that is A, your offense spends a lot of time on the field, and B, your defense does. I think the Niners can run against this Colts defense as good as they are. I think the Niners have the horses to be able to run a little bit, Christian McCaffrey and Brian Robinson Jr. And I think with Brock Purdy steadying the helm, they have a passing attack that can a short passing attack that can keep the ball moving, matriculating up the field, as they would say. So with that being said, of course I'm going to pick. If I had to pick, I'm picking the Niners just because I don't ever pick against my own squad. I may realistically say we should lose this game, but I'll never bet against it. But who you got tomorrow?
I think the Colts are all in on the season, having done the Sauce Gardner trade, but I think his impact will be limited. He'll be on whoever's going to be the top receiver for the Niners. I believe Persall is still out, if I'm not mistaken. He hasn't come back
Persall is
yet.
out, yes.
Ayuk hasn't played all season. That means it's going to be Jennings and backups with Kittle. You're going to get a lot of Kittle action. He'll probably have 100 plus yards, maybe a touchdown or two. It's going to be a
For
ton of
fantasy.
Christian McCaffrey out the backfield, the play action passes and the screens and things like that to get him in motion. But I think that betting wise, I got a feeling it's going to be the Colts just based off of what Philip Rivers was able to do against a potent Seattle defense and keeping that game tight, and giving them an opportunity to win that game late. Um,
That
yeah,
defensive coordinator wasn't Robert Saleh.
I mean, I'll give Salah a lot of credit. I liked him as the Jets head coach. I thought that he kind of got shortchanged with the Aaron Rodgers injury. I believe if Aaron Rodgers doesn't tear his Achilles literally in the first game of the season, I believe Salah might still be the New York Jets head coach, to be quite honest. So I'm gonna pick the Colts, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Niners win this game. Uh, the Colts are obviously in fight or flight mode with Daniel Jones going down for the rest of the year after showing things he had never really shown in New York. So the year he was having, it's kind of a rough, for him to be playing so well and so good for that team and bringing them from where they were to the precipice of being a title contending team, even though they were on the lower end, even with this renaissance, you got to give him credit. So to see it end on an injury is brutal, but to watch the resurrection of Phillip Rivers is the kind of storyline. I want to say 2 years ago it was Joe Flacco. They pulled him off the couch and put him on the practice squad. I believe he was with the Browns twice, the Colts once, and Cincinnati for a little while. So watching these old timer quarterbacks still kind of get their chance is pretty crazy in the last few years. When, let's be honest, I thought Philip Rivers was a fringe Hall of Fame quarterback. I knew LaDainian Tomlinson would get there. I felt like Antonio Gates would get in. I wasn't too sure about Philip Rivers because for skill position players, it's more about individual stats versus team success. But for quarterbacks, it's typically about team success with your individual stats. So he was right on the verge of having an opportunity to go to the Hall of Fame. It would have been an even better storyline because it's never happened before to have a Hall of Fame player come out of retirement and play for a team again, which would have been even more crazy than we've seen the last few years. But getting back to the game,
It's
I
Burt
think the Colts.
Reynolds, man, coming in on the longest
It's
yard.
crazy, yeah. So I mean, I think the Colts edge out the Niners, but it would not surprise me to see the Niners with what they've done with the injuries to do enough and have Phil Rivers not have enough time with his team and see the Niners also eke out a victory. So right now I'm 50-50. It's hard to choose. I'm not mad about whoever wins, to be honest. Both teams need the storylines. Both teams have to have the win. So neither of them can afford the loss right now. I think Colts edge it out, but I said I'm 50-50. Niners could also edge it out. I don't think it'll be a blowout either way.
Okay, okay. I can agree with you there. But another thing to remember in the Colts saga before we go to break here is that Colts did just open the practice window for Anthony Richardson to come off the IMR. So remember that was their young quarterback that they drafted last year that had everybody wondering why they signed Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
So
they're
he
not
may
playing
end
them.
up,
It don't matter. it's
you never
it's the
know.
Philip Rivers show to finish out the season. Anthony Richardson, he might suit up just to be the backup. He won't see the field. They've lost faith in that kid. It's unfortunate for him. He got hurt at the wrong time when he would have had a chance to pull his career out of the gutter.
Yeah.
He's made a lot of mistakes as a young player in the game, but I liked him coming out of college. I liked when they drafted him. I thought they'd have an opportunity, but injuries and his own issues kind of hurt him. And then for Daniel Jones to come in and light it up like he was doing, which we hadn't really seen from Richardson at all, even when he was healthy. So his career as a Colt is essentially done, and he would have already been cut, in my opinion, had he not been a first round pick.
All right, and here's last thoughts. The 49ers placed Brandon Ayuk on the physically able to unperform, and ended his season this year. Yeah, it's looking
cut.
more and more about a day like he's played his last snap.
Yeah.
It was all up to him from the get-go. Like if he bought in to being in San Francisco, if he was going to buy into being in San Francisco, he should have just bought in. But to try to force to sign the contract and then continue to pull the same bullshit was just like.
I'll be honest, I think something happened. I don't know if it was between teammates. I don't know if it was between him and the coaching staff, but when you're hurt and all you've got to do to keep collecting your full paycheck is to go to team meetings and you're not even doing that, something to me had to happen. And I don't think it was like Antonio Brown with CTE. Ayuk's been hurt, but he hasn't been knocked unconscious a ton of times like Antonio Brown had been in his career as a Steeler before he left and went all crazy. So I think that something happened, and it kind of it harkens back to the Alden Smith Kaepernick thing when it was the girlfriend and went from Alden Smith, and then Kaepernick started dating her, and next thing you know, Alden Smith's going crazy and his whole career goes downhill. To me, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Something happened with Ayuk that totally turned him off to where he said, I don't give a shit about my fucking money that I just signed. Y'all need to just go ahead and cut me. And to be honest, outside of Antonio Brown, who we know this is CTE related, we don't know what happened with Ayuk, and I don't think it was CTE related for a guy to just give
Oh
up
no.
millions of dollars to say, nah, I need to get the hell up out of here. I'm really curious when he writes his tell-all book when he's retired to find out what happened and what set off these chains of events to where he signs an incredibly lucrative contract with this team that's competing for Super Bowls and says, nah, get me the hell out. Even though he had the whole trade me thing that led up to it, he still signed the deal. I don't know what happened, but boy, I bet you would make for some good reading.
Yeah, 100%. And on that note, we'll take that break and we'll come back with some basketball talk and some college football playoff talk as well. You are watching The Classroom right here on First GenXers Broadcast Network. I am Dark Lord 100. That is Suave. Peace.
We back at it. Yep, we still doing it. Poetic beats. First GenXers. Gia. Let's get it, y'all. We fucking up in the lab, turn it up, game on with the first GenXers. We back at it. Yep. We still doing it. Come on. We back in the building. It's been a long time cooking in the soup kitchen. The same. Dropping these beats won't stop. Nope, I can't. Let me get up in the lab. Turn it up. Next is what's up.
All right, that was insane. Normally I get to take my break, but I guess not today. Yeah, that was insane. It worked perfectly fine during Cheap Pop. Just fine. Like seriously,
First like 30 seconds, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work.
Like I don't know what the difference is. Like I have all the same shit up that I had up on my computer at that time. I don't know.
Just one of those fluky things. We keep it going.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Dang, dude, hella quarterbacks going down. You hear Gardner Minshew went down as well?
ACL as well.
He might have a torn. Yeah, I'm like.
I turned on the game and I seen a quarterback name I had never seen before. It felt like it was NCAA because it was like an African looking name on a white dude. And I was like, who the hell is that under center? Where the hell's Gardner Minshew? Gardner Minshew out for the rest of the year with tearing ACL. I was like,
I guess the Niners hired a voodoo lady to send their juju out to everybody else too. Huh?
I don't know, man. I'll be honest. This is in terms of these types of injuries from ACLs, LCLs, PCLs, Achilles, it's really getting pretty strange out there in terms of injuries compared to everybody loves to say that, the players today are just bigger, better, faster, stronger. But I think we've reached that tipping point because let's be honest, back in the day, people got hurt, got broken bones, they had, torn tendons, the whole nine, but you didn't hear it at this level. Not at this quantity, I would say. You might lose a guy here or there, probably a lot more undiagnosed concussions for sure. But, for them to be getting this amount of and non-contact. I mean, Parsons went down non-contact. Mahomes went down non-contact. I mean, It's very, very. I mean, and it's not just the NFL. I don't just want to seem like I'm picking on them because it's happening in the NBA as well. And I know for the NBA, they say, well, they're doing a lot more different movements, a lot more quick cuts,
High impact,
things
yeah.
like that. For it to be happening on the field and not just happening on artificial turf, but happening on grass as well. I mean, it's very strange, and the NFL really, for the amount of effort that the NFL went in to protect players and protect specifically quarterbacks, they're going to have to start looking at why these are happening versus just going, oh, well.
Yeah, pretty much part of the game. All right. So that jumps us over to that other league we mentioned, the NBA, where we're going to talk some NBA Week 9 stories. But we're going to open up with NBA Cup 2025, the most unimportant tournament ever. Update. As with the tournament finally over, the Knicks claimed the NBA Cup. They defeated the San Antonio Spurs 124-113 in the final to win the 2025 Emirates NBA Cup. Jalen Brunson was named the tournament's MVP.
Good for the Knicks. They needed the confidence. I am a Jalen Brunson fan. For him to say that I'm not going to stay with the team that drafted me because I'm New York born and bred, so I'm going home. I mean, that kind of, and then for him to get all his, I believe it's Villanova, for him to get a lot of his Villanova teammates to the team, which we hadn't really seen before at that level, in that quantity for sure. I want to say at one point they had 4 or 5 of the Villanova players from back when Brunson was on the squad. So for him to
and the boy.
Yeah. So for him to go there, become the man, get his friends that he likes to play with on the team and have them be deserving of being on the team, and for them to become a winning franchise again, I'm happy for Jalen Brunson. I don't care about the cup. Please don't raise a damn banner for the stupid cup.
No, I believe the Knicks already said that they would not be raising a banner.
Yeah, because I mean that was the most. As soon as the Lakers did that, I was like, it's shit is trash.
Here's the thing about it. Here's the thing about the Lakers one. I agree with you that the tournament was trash. The tournament is trash. But the Lakers one, I get. I get only because of this. It was the very first. It was the inaugural. Here's where here's where I say I'm good with it. I would have been good with it. Here's where they screwed me out of saying I was good with it. If they had raised the banner at the Vegas stadium where they play the championship game, and only there, then I'm good with it. You don't need to raise a championship banner in your own home for winning the in-season tournament. That's stupid. But all of the champions should get banners that are hung in the Vegas arena where they play the NBA Cup Finals.
I might be okay with that to an extent, but it's the same as saying they ought to make a cup ring or a cup necklace or some kind of trophy for winning it. This needs if there's no importance to it. I mean, literally, they're not even fighting for, say, home court advantage in the finals. Like how baseball did it with the All-Star game for a while. Whoever won got the home field advantage. And that was an interesting take at the time, because it helps the players who actually want to play hard during that game. In baseball, it's a bit easier to actually play hard versus, say, the NFL and the NBA. The NBA, they could play a little bit harder, but by baseball putting the home field advantage on the All-Star game, if there was something tangible to the cup games, like let's say if the Knicks made the finals, or now the Eastern Conference now gets home court advantage in the finals, regardless of record, that would sit better with me than getting nothing. The game is worth nothing. The playoff format is worth nothing. I just can't get behind it. There's really no point to this cup. I don't understand how they thought this was a good idea when nothing's in the balance.
Because everybody at the time was asking for an in-season tournament. But I don't think this is what people were thinking of when they thought about an in-season tournament. Like, for me, I thought like this. Have the games count. Make All-Star break like 4 weeks and have a tournament play out over like a month. But have all the games count, you know what I'm saying, to where they're all playing the same number of games. So even if you lose in like the second, like you play a knockout round or you play a round robin round, and then for like 2 weeks, and then you play a knockout round. You know what I'm saying? And then if you lose in a knockout round, you still have consolidation games you could play. And the same thing goes for the people that are knocked out in the round robin round. There's still consolidation games for them to play. So that everybody ends the month with around the same type of amount of games, and they can continue on to play the rest of their 82. But that's what I envision when they said in-season tournaments. Like, we're going to break down the season, not this where people are going to be playing like 3 regular season games and then a cup game, and then like
it doesn't work in the terms of continuity for teams either. A team can be hot going into it, but during the season is different than going into a series, because you're not going into an actual series where you can fill out your teammate, cough a game up. You go right into cup games, and who knows? It's not your night. You lose again, or you're doing like the mini losing streak, and your cup season is over. Besides the fact that it's not worth anything.
Well, it is for the players because they do get a bonus check should they win it. So
These NBA players don't. If it's not millions of dollars, they don't need it. It's you know, and it's the kind of thing where you win one of these game checks, and I don't know, you frame it like Steve Young framed one of his first paychecks from the Niners for $1 million, or left it in the sock drawer. I think Ricky Henderson was the one that framed his $1 million check, which was good, and somebody had to ask him, "Hey, you might want to go cash that."
Nah. I'm
right.
worth $1 million.
Anyway, real, man. For real.
All right. So the next story up on the NBA block is the Wembanyama man. As his block continues his block streak as the Spurs center Victor Wembanyama became only the 3rd player in NBA history, joining Ewing and Mutombo to record at least 1 block in 100 consecutive games. Yeah.
I mean, the kid is a phenom. I don't believe I'm going to go to my grave saying the Spurs did not deserve to win that lottery. That kind of player, a franchise-changing player, could have gone to any number of the losingest teams in the game and made them a standout organization and franchise. The Spurs didn't. They just got finished with 20 years of good basketball. They didn't need Wembanyama. I don't know why the NBA rigged the lottery for them to win it. It's the craziest thing from where they jumped up and leapfrogged the worst teams in the league to get this type of phenom. But I'm going to be one of the ones to die on this hill. They didn't deserve Wemby. And I'm sorry, there's other franchises that have been ho-hum, never won nothing, could have used this transcendent talent of Wemby over his first 7 or 8 years or 9 years, depending on what kind of extension he signs. I would have liked to seen another team get that run with that player, but he's a Spur. There's nothing we can do about it. They've went ahead and they've drafted good players to play with them. They've made some trades to bring in other players to play with them. The kid is incredible. He's going to be the face of the league in the next 2 years tops, maybe just even next year, as soon as the big 3 or 4 or 5 players retires, Curry, LeBron, KD, once those guys start hanging them up, it's Wemby's time. Him, the kid from Minnesota, that type of deal. You kind of knew with Wemby's skills he was going to be something special. Really, for him, it's kind of come down to injuries. He's already been injured a couple of times throughout his career already, and they haven't been minor injuries. They've been big ones that have scuttled his season. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of them was like a blood clot scare, if I'm not mistaken. And if that's the case, that's the kind of stuff that could end a career. So, because I believe that's what ended Chris Bosh's career with Miami after he had bolted from Toronto was the blood clots, and I believe he almost died from it.
Almost had to. I believe he did have to retire.
Yeah. So Wemby's transcendent talent. He's going to do more things of breaking records for big men. He's going to be the face of the franchise and the face of the league very, very soon. I think that at this point in time, he's maybe 1 year of consistent health away from being an MVP level player. I believe he's kind of already there, but we need to actually see him complete a full season so he can get into those talks. They've built a good team around him in San Antonio. I'm happy for him. You know, I just wish it had happened for another team that sorely could have used some. You know, I was happy when the Cavs got LBJ. You know, I was happy when the Sonics got KD. You know, when you get those transcendent players for a team that hadn't really done anything, I root for those teams because I've been a Warrior fan my whole life. And we went through 45 years of trash. You know, we had little spikes, mini spikes. The Run TMC lasted like 2 seasons. You had the We Believe that lasted a season and a half. You had Strength in Numbers. That was the start of our new title run that put us solidly in the third place of all-time best teams in the NBA history. But we had decades of mind-numbingly bad basketball combined with these little spikes like the Chris Webber spike where we got him and won 54 games with Tim Hardaway tearing his ACL. We get Chris Webber, we look amazing with just him and Spreewell really kind of running the show. You know, he had the go behind the back dunk on Charles Barkley, and that was his year. He was going to the finals. It looked like we had arrived, and that whole thing gets scuttled because he doesn't get along with Don Nelson. Don Nelson says, "Fire me, don't get rid of this guy." They get rid of the guy and keep Don Nelson. When a guy tells you you should get rid of me and not the player, you listen to the coach. I love Don Nelson to death, my favorite coach all time, one of the winningest coaches of all time in all of basketball, to not have had a championship team. He came from championship teams in his Celtic days, but, you know, I really would have loved to have seen Wemby go to Atlanta or maybe Charlotte or the Washington Wizards, who I think should still be called the Bullets, but that's neither here nor there. There's a good bottom 10 of the league where Wemby could have and should have gone to elevate basketball in that area versus a team, like I said, just came off of 20 years of playoff basketball.
And I will say this. I agree with you 100%. But here's where my thought process is a little bit different on Wemby, and a lot of people are this is going to be a hot take for a lot of people. Wemby gets a lot of blocks simply because he's tall. And I know that sounds like I'm demeaning his basketball skill. I'm not. But
being real,
he's fucking huge. He towers over
7'4".
everybody on the damn court.
And
it's not
athletic.
that hard for putting his hand up for a block is doing that. Like what for most of us, we're trying to in arms way up here and jumping. He just has to do like that.
And the block that he had the last game where he just stood up with his arm, got the block, got the ball, and in 5 strides got to the other side of the court and dunked it. Craziest thing I've ever seen from a hooper. That must have been the way Wemby reminds me, Wilt Chamberlain, being so far and so above everybody around him athletically and size-wise. This must be how they felt when Wilt Chamberlain was doing his thing.
Or I would say, well, he never got to do his thing in whatchamacallit, but if you watch the film of Sean Bradley in high school, I think it was already like 7'2" and a point guard.
And I liken it more to, Sean Bradley was maybe if Sean Bradley hadn't gone to work for the AmeriCorps or whatever it was and wasted those 2 years of his life and then just stayed with basketball, maybe he's better. But he wasn't athletic as Wilt Chamberlain or Wemby. Wemby and Chamberlain to me had those guard type skills. I'm gonna.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. You know that Bradley paid point guard for his high school team. Like, but
he outgrew his ability.
Right. Well, no, he just didn't. He was a prime example of if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah,
like,
true,
you know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong. There are flaws, but like I said, go back and watch that video of him in high school, and that boy can move. He moved like a goddamn gazelle up and down the court. And
should have stayed with his game.
Yep, and Wemby reminds me of that as well, where he's like this gazelle out there moving on the court. He's covering 7 paces for his teammates 1, in 1 stride. because that boy is just so big.
Half cheetah, half giraffe.
He is what I call dangerous because he is that tall, and some guys in basketball could get by just being that tall and being rim protectors.
Oh, we've seen the stiffs. We used to call them stiffs. We've seen a bunch of those.
I'm like, but he increases his value by knowing how to shoot threes as well, and has a beautiful stroke with him.
He has elevated his game. Mm-hmm.
So it's like they call KD a 7-foot monster, but I'm not sure KD is a true 7 foot. Isn't he like truly like 6'11"?
No, he's a true 7-footer. I want to say he's 7'7" 7'1". He doesn't like being called a 7-footer. He's one of those rare guys where they actually like this. This is funny. My favorite Tim Hardaway story. He's listed as 6'3". Tim Hardaway was 5'10". He wasn't even 6 foot in sneakers, but whereas KD, he hates that label. He doesn't want to be known as the 7-footer. So realistically, yeah, he was Wemby before Wemby in a sense, outside of he was more of a small forward, power forward versus a true center. But he wouldn't allow people to put him in that center role. Plus, he was incredibly more skinny coming out of Texas. But yeah, he's a true 7-footer who likes to be listed as 6'10", which is crazy. Yeah, Spur fans, y'all go ahead and come for me. I ain't even mad at it. Y'all didn't deserve Wemby. Y'all had a great 20 years of basketball. Honestly, before that, you had the Admiral years. So you haven't had a ton of terrible, gut-wrenching seasons. You had after Iceman, you guys weren't necessarily doing nothing then. And I get that. But most of your fans today, they weren't alive for any of that. All they've known is the Admiral, Tim Duncan. I mean, let's be real. That's like 30 years. And just a few years after Duncan hangs him up, you end up with a transcendent player like Wemby. Y'all didn't deserve it.
All right. And the final, speaking of records, speaking of big men, the final subject for today, the second to last subject for today is Nikola Jokic's milestone. The Nuggets center surpassed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for most assists by a center in NBA history. Congratulations.
I'll be honest, this one doesn't impress me. I'm more impressed by Wemby doing his blocks versus Jokic doing the assist thing. I think a lot of people put too much on his assists where you have decent shooters around you and you are the guy with the ball in your hand more than 50% of the game. So you dictate a lot more of the action and you're going to rack up assists. I'll be honest. There's probably 6 to 7, 8 other centers that could probably do the same thing if they were to have the ball put in their hand for 50% of the possessions that a team has. No, that's not a diss on Jokic. I'm just saying in the terms of how they play, I do believe that there are about 5 to 7 to 8 other centers that could be doing the same assist numbers, not the same amount of scoring, not the same amount of rebounding, not the same amount of true shooting. But if they played in the high post, because it likens me to Andrew Bogut. When Bogut came from Milwaukee to the Warriors, he had a bunch of guys. He played in the high post, right at the top of the key on the corners. And his job was to kind of run the offense, run them around screens, throw the ball to the guy in the motion offense. He shoots, he scores, and Bogut's averaging 4 to 5 assists a game. They just didn't run it into the ground like Denver does because Denver is so Jokic focused. He is a Hall of Fame worthy talent. I don't want to take nothing away from Jokic. He deserves the ring that he won. He's in line to get another one before he hangs it up, maybe even 2, all depending on what happens around the league. But this right here, for me, isn't that big of a deal with how it's the same thing we say about LeBron James. LeBron James is year 23, year 22, however many long it's been, and he's always had to be the man. This is the first year he's actually taken a back seat to players he should have taken a back seat for, so that way they could actually win titles versus him getting his stats. This right here is a good thing for Jokic's career to put in his individual thing. It doesn't up him into the GOAT conversation in my book. But it is a nice thing for him to have on his individual accomplishments as he continues his path to the Hall of Fame.
Sure. I agree. it's a nice little checkbox on his career list. But like you said, it doesn't launch him into the GOAT debate. I think it does firmly put him in the center in the conversation of best center.
Nope, I can't do that. You lost me there, bro.
Yeah.
I tell you like
I
this.
think that it firmly puts
He
him in the
needs
I'm not saying
another.
it puts him in the top 3. I just think it puts him in that conversation. Like if you're going to talk about all of the great centers in NBA history, can the story be written without ever talking about Jokic? I don't believe so. I think he's had an impact on the league.
I'll agree with you there, and I do think he is a top 10 center. But until he actually helps his team win multiple chips, at least one more, I think that keeps him out of, say, the top 5, 6, 7, because those guys have multiple chips. You're talking Hakeem, Shaq. Wilt only got one, but he had all those other stats that Jokic will never touch. 100 points in a game, averaging 50 points a game, averaging 25 rebounds a game. You got Russell, 11 titles, 2 as a coach player. So I mean, there's so many people I feel you can't forget Tim Duncan. He played more center throughout his career than he did power forward, but they love calling him a power forward. And Jokic is kind
Well,
of
that's
one of
because when
those.
he came in.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those kind of tweener things. So I mean, I wouldn't put him above Tim Duncan and his 5 titles in 20 years of never missing the playoffs. So I mean, there's a Jokic has definitely pushed himself into the top 10 or around the top 10 greatest centers to have ever played the game. But I don't feel that he has pushed himself close to the top 5 in that regard. Maybe someone can make the argument he belongs to be at 6 or 7. I could maybe get on board with that, but he needs, at least for me, in my personal opinion on how I rank all-time greats, he needs at least 1 to 2 more titles to really elevate into that top 5 category.
There you go. All right. So the last thing we're going to be talking about today, other sports stories this week, is Ole Miss, or the college football playoff, which had its first round happen, and some very interesting things happened. We saw, Lane Kiffin's old team, Ole Miss, managed to beat up on Tulane 41-10. And I am here for college football playoff action.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can put the Notre Dame thing to rest. I think they need to play in a bowl game. I think that Miami winning their game and Alabama winning their game, which were the 2 teams that all the Notre Dame fans were aghast that they got in and we didn't. Well, they won their first round game, which pretty much solidified they deserved to be in. And yes, Notre Dame may have had a chance to win in the first round as well, but you weren't allowed to play, and the teams that were chosen above you, won for the most part. James Madison didn't win, but they still played very well, better than I thought they would have against Oregon. With the highlights I was looking at, I thought they might have had a chance to win the game. Then find out they actually kind of got blown out, but they did put up 34 points against a power program, I'll say. Oregon's been a power program the last 10, 15-ish years, maybe 20 years tops. James Madison has been nowhere on the map, if we're just being totally blunt about it. And for them to go put 34 up on them, I mean, there was a high scoring match. So you can see why they had an opportunity, and had they had some defensive stops, they might have pulled off the miracle,
Yeah. And then you also had Alabama do what they needed to do, beating Oklahoma 34-24.
Yeah, that was a good game.
You had my number 10 Miami beat Texas A&M in a tough one, 10-3.
Yep.
Like I said, Ole Miss runs over Tulane 41-10 without Lane Kiffin. So maybe they're gonna be just fine.
They should be. I mean, really, the coach that's coming in was on staff, so it's not like they're bringing in somebody new off the street. The team has familiarity with them. They kind of understand how the game planning was going and how the calls were being made. So I think that they'll be okay. I think not having Lane Kiffin can hurt them in the next round and the rounds after, once they start facing the tougher teams. I believe that Lane Kiffin gets a lot of flack and a lot of hate, but let's not mince bones about it. Outside of his horrible tenure as the Raiders head coach, he has been great or part of great programs in college. And he's been associated with great coaching, whether he was an assistant or a head coach. And people will say, oh, well, he was trash in I forget if it was USC or UCLA where they told him he was fired on the tarmac.
Yeah.
I believe Heather knows that story. But
Mm.
his Alabama days, and now getting to Ole Miss, I think the team didn't do their kids a good enough service. I believe they should have allowed him to coach in this game. It happens all around the college football. I would have liked to have seen what this team could have done without the headache and hiccup. Let him finish it out, see how far he can get. Who knows? You might have lucked in to winning a national title. But what you do is you now open the door if you happen to lose and you say, oh, well, you know, could they have won had they allowed Kiffin to finish the season?
Open, that's what they're gonna
Or
do.
do they try to hang it on Kiffin? Oh, well, he left us. He wanted to coach, but he was still leaving us anyway, and we just couldn't do it. There's all kinds of, ways to try and control the narrative on that. But for me, it's been happening forever in college football where coaches just bounce to another team. They still finish out the season, and now you're in this playoff format. I don't see any reason why Ole Miss, even losing him and a few of the coordinators, should have not let him finish the job this season. But
Fair
we'll
enough.
see what happens. Maybe they surprise me and Ole Miss wins the title. I don't see it myself, but they do
Yeah.
have a good shot of doing it.
Well, in the next round, they will be facing number 3 Georgia and Kirby Smart. So that's going to be
A
a
tough
tough
matchup.
game right there.
Yeah.
Right there. Ohio State is going to be playing number 10 Miami. I find that to be an extremely
That's another good game. Yep.
Ohio State, I believe, is defending champs, right? Didn't they win last
Yep.
year?
Beat Notre Dame last year. That's why Notre Dame's all salty.
Yep. Number 4 Texas Tech will be taking on number 5 Oregon. That should be a good matchup.
Yeah.
In the second round. These games all take place on January 1st. And number 1 Indiana gets number 9 Alabama.
Another good game. Yeah.
That's going to be a good one right there. I don't know why we're waiting so long in between these first round matchups and then these other games.
Know.
It's like 2 weeks. It's like, and then you got to wait another week before the semifinals, and then another week after that. So
I think this will be fixed when they actually go to 24 teams for the playoffs. I believe that's the sweet spot is 24. A lot of people say 16. For me, it's 24. We have grown up with the top 25 in college sports for our entire lives. So now allow the battle to be for those teams between 25 and 30 that are battling to get into the last 5 spots of the playoffs. You do a top 24, the top 8 get bye weeks, and then it's a battle. And do like March Madness. Have a month. No, people might get bye weeks, but you're having college football every week. Do a whole month. I mean, the bowl season is a month, and you don't even, it used to be almost a whole month before you got to the title game when it was just 2 teams getting the chance to play for the title, and every other bowl game was played leading up to it. No one played bowl games after the title game, so you had a whole month of football games going on. Why not break that into the playoffs and do another version and kind of bite? I hate to say it to bite on college basketball, but they've had March Madness for so long, and it's great. I mean, March Madness is fantastic to watch, and it's massive. It's incredibly huge. This is what we're talking, 64 teams. So they could do 24. And I want to say it might be like 68 teams now for March Madness because they got those kind of like play-in last-minute win games or whatever.
Yeah.
But they could do 24 games. 8 teams get the bye week, the top 8. So you got to make the top 10 or whatever, which gives multiple conferences an opportunity to have 2 teams get a bye week. They can start working in home games. They don't all have to be, neutral sites. You can actually be fighting for home games. And then in the later rounds, when it's tighter, then you start going to those neutral sites, the Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Fiesta, the Rose Bowl. Don't leave those guys out. But I think that's where it needs to go. And then Notre Dame wouldn't be crying about not playing in a bowl game. You'd get more James Madisons, which I honestly would like to see. Hell, maybe one year in some time frame, we see a top 20 team or a top 24 team actually win a college football playoff.
But no, I agree with you. That was the point I was going to make, and I'm sitting forward to make, is that the first 2 rounds, if you're doing the 24, don't even have to be like bowl games. So you can still have your own bowl games going on and have these games going on every weekend, right? and still have the bowl games going on during the week. So you still have a month full of football. But you have bowl games every week, Monday through Friday, and you have the college football playoff, the event rounds every weekend.
Yep.
And you're still sticking with the and then that opens up more bowl games, because the only parts of the tournament that you really need to have be at the neutral sites would be the semifinals or the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and then the finals. No, the quarterfinal or the semifinals and then the finals.
Semis and the finals.
And then in that regard, you only really need to be rotating 2 bowls, because you need the 2 bowls for the semifinals. And then you don't need to. The national championship game is a bowl game all in itself now. So that doesn't have to be a Sugar Bowl or whatever like that. That's the national title game. So you really
I don't think they're going to get rid of the big bowls, the Big 4 or whatever it is.
No, I'm not saying get rid of them. I'm saying it opens it up for them to go back to their traditional ways of doing things, like the Rose Bowl. For on the years when it's not being used as a semifinal game, it goes back to its Big 10 winner versus Pac-12 winner. If there's a Pac-2 winner in that game, you know what I'm saying, or the Big 12. Like
I don't think they would remove them. Those bowl games want to be in the mix, and that's fine. I think we just extend it out to where it's not the semis, say just the quarterfinals, and that would actually bring in some other bowls, some of the lesser bowls that used to be big bowls. The Peach Bowl, the Sugar Bowl. It puts more emphasis on those outside of the Big 4. You could. I mean, I hate to say the Fiesta Bowl, but there's lesser bowls that have kind of come up, and you can rotate, say, all the other bowl games that are out there, the Bahamas Bowl, the Alamo Bowl that used to be in the Cal used to always play in the Alamo Bowl when they actually made a bowl game during my lifetime. But there's a handful of other bowl games at good sites where you can kind of rotate them in when they're not being, everybody gets a chance. Because I'll be honest, I'm kind of sick of the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, always being the top flight bowl games, always going to be the championship game location. No, I want to see some of these other bowl sites. I get kind of, when it's always the same bowl. I mean, let's be honest, it's just like the NFL. If it was always the same location, always the same stadium or same grouping of stadiums, it would get stale. And let's be honest, college football in that regard has gotten stale because these 4 to 6 big freaking bowl games are the only places the biggest games of the year are played. And honestly, that's a travesty when you have so many other good bowl locations that never get used.
But it's because people tune in when they play in those bowls. Like, I hate to say it, but
but it's the teams that make the bowl game, though.
Yeah, I agree, but it's that name recognition of the bowl games that they want to keep. But I don't know.
I mean, they've had a lot of history, and the how you were saying, the old school way when like the Big 10 and the Pac-12 or Pac-2 used to meet up, and it was the Rose Bowl, and we all remember Desmond Howard and Woodson, holding the roses in their mouth and their teeth, and there's been big moments in those games. I just wish they wouldn't shortchange all the other bowl games that are out there, because I'll be honest, there were bowl games I didn't even know existed outside of, say, the Alamo Bowl, which I know real well being a Cal fan. So,
bro, I don't know if I'd want to watch Uncle Smitty's deep fried potato bowl.
I don't know, dude. Give me one of like the top 10 of those bowl games that at least have name recognition. They won't be at the same level as the big bowl games, but at least especially if you have it based off location. I mean, there's other bowl games that are played at very good stadiums or arenas where they could have good bowl games with good crowds in good cities. So I mean, it's just you kind of get tired of the same 4 to 5 stadiums every year. All right, they're playing they got to go to Pasadena. They got to go to Miami. It's like, just spread a little bit more of the love. And I think they could with 2014s, because if they do make the whole thing neutral sites, you could bring in all those extra bowl games, give those areas all that extra revenue for their cities and stuff.
Hold on. They already used bowl games for the semifinals, which is 4 games, and the final. Or in the quarter, or the semifinals, which is 2 games, and the quarterfinals, which is 4, right?
Yeah.
So they already use bowls for those. So that's 6 bowls right there. So if you were to expand out, you would be to 24 teams. You would only be adding 12 extra games total.
Yeah.
So you would
And
only be able to bring in an
there's a
extra
lot of
12
other
bowls.
bowl games that, just location wise, that are still in good cities, play at good arenas or stadiums. That's all I'm really saying is the old fogey, Rose Bowl, Orange Bowl. It's just they're always going to be at the end. They're always going to have their shine. Can we get some of these other bowl games included and kind of rotate them in just to add something to it? If you're not going to give teams home games.
This fool wants to see Mama Rosita's Tamales Bowl.
Hey, as long as it's not the Duke's Mayo Bowl, I'm good with it. That's all I'm saying. As long as it's not the Duke's Mayo Bowl, I'll take the Aflac, I'll take the Bahamas Bowl. But let's be honest, there are some old school bowls that don't get any of the recognition, and no one outside of people that gamble on sports or go to that school actually watch those bowl games. There is a level, I want to say, about 10, 15 bowl games that actually have brand recognition, play in top flight cities, play at top flight stadiums that would be interesting.
Very true. Or you could even incorporate it if you really want to get funky with it. For the college football playoffs specifically, you could incorporate the NFL, kind of like how they do in high school.
Well, I don't want to get away from the bowl game places. I want them to get their due. The NFL's already making enough money. And to be honest, the bowl games already, a lot of them, the Orange Bowl plays at Miami's home stadium. The Pasadena is not. That's at UCLA's main stadium. But the NFL's already kind of getting its love. The Sugar Bowl is at Georgia at Atlanta Stadium. You know what I mean? So I mean they're already kind of getting their love. And I just want to see some of the other bowl games from years past. There's more bowl games than I remember because we went through and we kind of looked at all the names, and I didn't even know this was a bowl. The Bahamas Bowl. Where the hell did they play that? But there's that next level underneath the Big 5 or 6 where we could find some new life for the bowl system.
For exposure, yeah. But I agree with you. Just to wrap the subject up, I definitely 100% agree with you on the 2014 format. I think that would be best because it gives 24 teams an equal shot at winning a national title. It's not the same. That's one thing I hated about the 14 format. It was for a few of the years it felt like it was the same 4 teams, maybe one different one was in there. Now we've got a 12-team format, and it feels like more teams are getting a shot at the national title. So
there's still people being left out. And it will be, there'll still be people crying. They're ranked 25 in the nation. They're 9-4 or 8-5, and they feel like they should get a shot. But we will get more of those Cinderella stories where it won't happen a ton. But I believe in football, it has a better chance than, say, the March Madness, where that number 24 team wins their first game, wins the second game, and actually gets to the final, the semis or the quarters or whatnot. I think it has a chance to happen, and I think it makes for better football and better storylines for the NCAA as a whole.
Oh, yeah. And again, appeal to the business side of them. Think about how much money you're gonna make.
Yeah.
Think about how much money you're gonna look about how much money you've already made off the college football playoff. Adding what 12 more bowl games or 12 more games to that playoff would only add intrigue and
storylines, people talking about it. Break off the whole month. No more bye weeks in there. You get first round buys for the top teams, and then everybody else is playing until the top teams are playing. It's just money to be made.
I think you could, with the 16 and then the final 8 playing against the other 8. You could literally break it down, right? Because once you get down to the final eight teams, right, you would go from 16 teams to 18. Once you get down to the final 8 teams, you're basically going from 8 to 4.
Yep.
Hold on.
Yeah, the top 16 teams play. That's 8 winners right there facing the 8 top winners. And then after that, you're talking 8 games. Then you're talking 4 games. Then you're talking 2, and then 1. And then there's your championship game. I
was going to schedule in that they want the kids to be able to go home for Christmas. I think that's part of the reason why we have this big gap in it now. So now what you could do is you could have the 16 teams play the first weekend, the 8 teams, the 8 games that need to go on after that, go on the second weekend. Then they take the 2 weeks off from Christmas, and then they come back with the final 4 and then final 2 those next 2 weeks. Or they take the week off for Christmas, and then the week of New Year's, they have the final 4 play, and the very next week, the first week of January, they have
but you know what though? If you really think about it, the top 8 get a bye week. So they get Christmas off. We'll say that's what they've earned by having that bye week. The bottom 16 that play, I think those players would like to play, because if you think about it, most of the world is off for Christmas, or at least, especially in the United States, most people are off. So if you're playing those games in and around Christmas, you're getting more viewership, more people that'll see your school, see your program, more exposure for the players on your rosters to try to make it to the NFL and be seen. So I think that there's a definitely an advantage to having those teams actually play on Christmas. And let's be honest, for the ones that dream to go pro, you would love for an opportunity for some coach to be sitting at home on his couch with a turkey leg in his mouth, flicking on the game and going, "Hey, number 33, where do you think he's going to be drafted? What round? Yeah, 5th round. Yeah. Well, keep a note on him. I think that could, help the kids out a little bit more, giving them extra exposure. I don't think they get if you skip Christmas, because only a handful of teams actually play on Christmas, basketball, football, but for the most part, everybody's off. So they're going to get even
NFL
more
now
eyes on their
starting to
games.
run 3 games on Christmas.
Compared to what they could run though, because on Christmas Day, you get the 3 games, but after that, everybody's eating and chilling. But if you run, what would that be? 8 college football games, that's a lot of football. That the whole day is shook, or the day after Christmas.
They can run them concurrently over a day, to where like they're running 3 games at one time in 3 different locations, and then another 3 games. Like they could do it all in one evening.
I'd be very interested to see how they'll be able to pull it off. But I definitely would like the kids, at least the first round kids, the first 16 teams that don't get the bye, I'd like to see them play in and around Christmas, so that way we can actually get more eyes on those games, especially if it's from schools that we don't normally see outside of the bowl games nobody watches anyway.
Right, for sure. Now, me and you could go off on this for days, but we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We already ran a little long today. Thank you to everybody who tapped in, whether it be on YouTube or on Twitch. We love you. We thank you. Next week, hopefully, we will have O'Malley back. She did reach out and let me know what happened. She is okay. So I will have her back next week with me. Like this week was Swab's on week, so next week will be his off week. So he will be joining us in 2 weeks to talk more football, basketball, and maybe a little baseball. We're going into the new year. We'll take a look at some of those teams. That's it for us this week. We'll see y'all next week. Stay blessed, and like one of my favorite creators says, have the day you deserve. Peace.
Fuck LeBron, and Spurs fans, you can come with me because you didn't deserve Wemby.
There you go.
Bye.